know that more than 4,700 people have been injured as a result of police violence and police brutality in Turkey. People who were participating in peaceful protests. People who came out to defend what they saw as their right to an environment in which they wanted to live. The response from any human rights compliant state, the response from any decent state to those kinds of protests is to listen, is to protect, is to defend, and to champion the right of people to have their voices heard and to their freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. We have not seen that in Turkey over the last 2 weeks. We know that scores of people have been seriously injured, most as a result of the use of water cannon and tear gas. We have seen incidences of the police deliberately targeting, firing tear gas canisters at the heads of peaceful protesters. And we know that many people have suffered very grave injuries as a result. Indeed, one protester has died. And yesterday we saw the rhetoric from the Turkish Prime Minister increase, saying that they would no longer tolerate such protests. Well, we're here to tell the Prime Minister of Turkey that not only must he tolerate such protests, he has an obligation as head of his government under international human rights law to protect, to promote and to defend the right of all people in Turkey to participate in such peaceful protests. So we're here to demand an end to police violence, to demand an end to the use of weaponry such as rubber bullets, plastic bullets, of tear gas and of water cannons against peaceful protesters. There is no excuse for the levels of violence that we've seen in Turkey over the past 2 weeks, and it must end. Thank you very much indeed for coming out today. Please stay engaged on this. There's no indication yet that this situation is going to resolve itself very quickly. After the Prime Minister's comments yesterday, we saw increased use of tear gas, despite a clear commitment from the Governor of Istanbul that tear gas would not be used anymore. Immediately after the Prime Minister's comments, tear gas canisters were fired at the protesters in the park that was the centre of the original protests. So this is not going to end. This Prime Minister seems pretty determined to continue to violate the rights of people in Turkey to peaceful protest. We cannot stand by and allow that to happen. However long it takes, we must continue to raise our voices in support of and in solidarity with those protesters in Turkey. And we're in regular contact with our own colleagues in Amnesty International in Turkey, and we're hearing first-hand each day of the kind of injuries that are being experienced there. We know that the Amnesty offices in Turkey had to be turned into emergency medical treatment centres at various points in these protests. So please stick with this. Stay active, stay engaged, stay outraged, and make sure that Turkey hears your voices. Respect for human rights in Turkey. Thank you very much indeed.
What do we want? Human rights. When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Human rights.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Human rights.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Human rights.
When do we want them?
Now.
Hey, hey.